Hey everybody, welcome to Kingdom of Honor Does Pop Culture. I'm your host, Sandman Shane Spooney. Welcome my good buddy, the Honorable Jeff.
Hello.
And we're here to do the second part of our Titans coverage for Titans episodes 4 through 7.
Yeah, and this one, like I said, the first couple of episodes, I was taken back a little bit. Didn't really recognize the characters. I mean, I kind of knew Raven, kind of knew Robin, but the rest of them I didn't really know too much of. And it wasn't until about halfway through episode 3 where it hooked me. So I was really excited to watch these next 4, and it was really hard to not watch more once we got through episode 7. Like, I fought it. I ended up watching all 4 of these last Sunday, and I've been really fighting it all week because I just want to see where it goes from here.
Yeah.
I loved this. I am really loving this show. I loved the Doom Patrol episode. Having Cliff back on my TV was amazing. And I thought he did really well. My favorite part was when Raven did the little robot dance, and he goes, "I love her. She can stay."
Yeah.
That was just it was classic Cliff. I like the whole interaction with Larry when he was cooking and dancing and everything in the kitchen. Just the way that she interacted with Rita and Gar. That episode is probably my favorite of the bunch. Mainly because of how much I love the Doom Patrol, but also because I thought it worked really well. It was great to introduce Gar into the into the Titans and everything. So I like where this season is going, and I'm really getting into it.
Yeah, that Doom Patrol episode, it was good, but it was a little bit jarring just because, like, Cliff was being Cliff, but at the same time, it was definitely a toned down version. He wasn't saying fuck every 10 seconds, and also, like, just seeing that I totally forgot when I first watched it. There was a different actor portraying Chief. Yeah, and that was it was weird to see him in that role. So.
Yeah, it was, but it was nice to explain him being in a wheelchair when he was back on Doom Patrol, because there was a big thing where they were talking about. There was an episode in the first season where they talked about him walking and recovering. He'd gone through it once before, but they didn't mention how he got back into the wheelchair. So it was nice to see that. I enjoyed the episode. I enjoyed all of these. I will say this, and you brought it up about Jason Todd. I hated him from the moment he called Dick bro. As soon as he called Dick bro, I'm like, okay, this is a pompous douchebag. I can't stand this guy. And he didn't disappoint. His arrogance, his the way that he talked to people and talked down to people and talked about Batman and tried to one up Dick Grayson throughout the entire 2 episodes he was in, really, really made me hate him more. Like, I despised him. I just did. I don't know what your feelings were, but yeah, not a fan. Not a fan of him at all.
Yeah, he's an absolute dick, but I also just love the way that he fights too. He's just an amazing fighter, and so that's why I said, like, he's the best and the worst, because he's an absolute asshole, but at the same time he's a great his fight scenes are amazing, and
yeah,
but you can also tell that he's also trying to he's trying to impress Dick too, even though he's trying to surpass Dick. He's also trying to to impress Dick. And that scene in the factory or whatever it was, where he's like, "Should have taken the out, asshole." It's just
crazy. Right, yeah. I mean, I will say that he did have some fun lines. Just as a character, I didn't like him. I mean, he had some, like you said, his fight scenes were really cool. His though the one thing though that kind of bugged me about it is Robin was Batman's sidekick for a very, very long time to become as good a fighter as he was. Jason Todd had admitted that it's only been a year.
Yeah.
And that he's that good of a fighter already. So that was a little bit weird. I didn't like him personally because I thought he was just a pompous douchebag. But yeah, he had some good one-liners. He had a couple of decent scenes with his fighting technique and everything I thought was pretty cool. But ultimately, I don't want him on my TV anymore. And I know he's coming back as a Red Hood at some point, but
He's coming back far before Red Hood starts.
oh, is he? Oh God. Anyway,
But it actually is really cool at the end of episode 5 though to see Robin see Dick Grayson get saved by Robin. That
yep.
You gotta admit that was awesome.
Yeah, that was really cool. The other thing about this that I really want to talk about is how the transformation to Nightwing started, by watching his Robin suit burning up at the end of the 7th episode.
Yes, unfortunately, it takes way too long for that transformation to actually take place.
Right, but we're starting to see we're seeing the beginning of it now. That his transformation away from being Robin to becoming Nightwing is starting to take place. So it
is, but I just want to caution you, like the last episode of this season is called Dick Grayson. The last episode of season 2 is called Nightwing. So
we got a long time.
It's a slow. That's what I'm saying. It's a slow burn till we get there.
Yeah,
we do get there, but we get there.
With everything else going on with the story with Starfire and Gar, Beast Boy, Lion, Tiger, but whatever they call him, Gar, and Raven, I'm okay with Dick being this Dick Grayson Nightwing thing being a slow burn, because there's a lot of stories, and I really kind of want to get into the story to see it happen. I don't want to just see him, oh, my Robin suit burned, so I've all of a sudden got this new flashy suit.
Well, I'm there for it, because you and I have talked about this before. You know that when it comes to the comics, my 2 favorite characters in the DC universe are number 1, Hal Jordan, number 2, Dick Grayson. So I mean, I'm definitely there for him evolving as a character.
Yeah, and I really want to see the evolution. I'm glad now that you told me it's a slow burn. I'm even more excited for it, because we have enough other stuff going on, and it's nice to see his, I don't really want to call it descent, more of an ascension from his Robin character to Nightwing. And it'll be nice to see that happen fully, not just, he watches the R melt in a fire, and then 2 episodes later he shows up as Nightwing. It'll be nice to see that story develop. Agreed.
Yeah, I really do enjoy. I enjoy, like you said, everything going on with those other characters, and we've got, we still have, we've now gone 4 episodes without anything involving Hank and Dawn, right? So we know they're coming back into those last 4 episodes too. So we've got that to resolve itself as well before we head into the season.
Didn't Dawn die? I thought Dawn died.
No, she's in the hospital in bed still.
I knew she was in the hospital, but we haven't heard anything, so I just assumed she died. Oh man, you
thought she was gonna die off screen. Come on.
She was a bit character. I mean, she was only in 1 episode, so it's not like she was somebody we're totally invested in. I knew Hawk was coming back.
She was in 2 episodes. 3.
Yeah, but
she was
still,
in 3.
Was she in all 3 of the first episodes?
No, wait. She was in 2. I'm sorry, she was in episode 2 and episode 3, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought too. But regardless, I mean, I guess we are only 7 episodes in, so it'll be nice to see them back too. But what, we got 4 episodes? I
just can't believe you just said that. I mean, when it comes to comic book movies, television shows, comic books, if a character does not die on screen, the character did not die.
And a lot of times, if the character does die on screen, they still don't really die.
That's true. That's very true.
Remember Phil Coulson?
Yes.
So, and pretty much everybody that got snapped away in the Marvel universe. So, yeah, they're not really dead. And I guess I just looked at the names of the next couple episodes, and one of them actually is Hawk and Dawn. So, So yeah, but I'm loving this show. I thought when I saw how dark it was, but you and I kind of talked about this off air one time. I'm really liking the new twist of the DC universe, and I think it really started with Titans and Doom Patrol, and now probably Man of Steel is where it really started, because didn't Titans and Doom Patrol came out about 4 years after that?
Yeah.
But it really started with Man of Steel, but this new darker tone where they're not afraid to kill, they're not afraid to, um, look these overpowered gods look weak. Um, and I'm really enjoying the new DC universe, and I really hope they continue it like this.
Say, I say, I hope they do this. I hope they do the same thing with Gotham PD. That's the show that we do debut on HBO Max. I think next year. Whereas it's kind of the original vision for the Gotham TV show that was on Fox, but this will be on HBO Max. So
Okay.
it'd be kind of cool to see if we have like cops kind of in that same like mode, like they're not afraid to kill people and all that kind of stuff, in
You
the DC
know, now
universe.
that now that you bring that up, I think Gotham was really where the darker tone started with DC. I mean, Batman's always been kind of a dark movie and everything, but not as dark as it is now. Um, Batman was kind of dark, but he had the no killing rule, and uh, and then Superman, Wonder Woman, they were all colorful and bright and hope for everybody and everything, and they were just literally overpowered gods. And to see them now after Man of Steel and Gotham and Titans and Dawn of Justice and Zack Snyder's version of Justice League, Aquaman, and all that stuff, to see these guys not be these overpowered gods, but be real people with real emotions, not afraid to kill to solve a threat. It's just refreshing seeing where the DC universe is going away from that goofy 80s and 90s Superman and Batman.
Well, the '90s, the '90s Batman animated series was not goofy and
I never saw much of it.
I know, but I know you did. I know you didn't because you're not really into the animated stuff very much. But really that was a dark and gritty show. I mean, Batman still, refused to kill, but he wasn't afraid to do other things. Um, and Joker on that show was outstanding as well. But I love that show, and it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see when that show gets revamped soon because they are bringing it back, to see if if they do go even darker now, like this Titans, like because the Batman animated series was not a kid show; it was actually on prime time. So I mean, it was meant to be for an older audience. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with this new Bat, if they just kind of continue along those same dark lines, which would still be magnificent, or if they actually
Right.
go dark, where Batman is actually willing to go farther
Well, even in the Dawn of Justice and stuff like that, Batman still isn't willing to go that extra length. Um, he's still being his normal self about no killing rules and all that stuff, and it's tying into the storyline of why Dick Grayson left him, was because Dick evolved to the point where he didn't care anymore, and Batman was like, no, you can't kill anybody, which ties into the Injustice video games. Have you played any of those, either one or
now. No,
two? Um,
I
in
those I thought those were like Mortal Kombat style games.
No, these are there was a DC versus Mortal Kombat, but the ones I'm talking about were only DC characters.
No,
And
no, no. I know they're called Injustice. I know they're called Injustice. I know they're DC characters only. But my point was, I
oh,
thought they were like combat games, like one-on-one
the,
combat type
yeah,
games.
it is a Mortal Kombat feel to it, but it's got a story to it as well. And the
Okay,
story is where, like, the original Injustice was Batman being bad.
okay,
Or not, I'm sorry, not Batman, but Superman being evil. And then they tied that into the second one where Superman was actually put in jail for being evil. Yeah, and then Dick Grayson turns on Batman during that because Dick Grayson is siding with Superman and the way Superman wants to be. They're really good stories. So if you ever get a chance to play them, play them. Because yeah, the combat scenes are Mortal Kombat-ish, but the story in both those games is incredible.
Speaking of Superman, wait till Connor shows up for season two. Season two.
Okay. We got 4 episodes left of this one, which I'm going to start watching
I
probably
I,
tonight.
I know, but I just so excited to think about the Connor season. I really enjoyed Connor in the second season too.
Okay, good.
Um, uh, where was I gonna? I can't remember where I was gonna go with some free time. Trying to mention Injustice, but that's okay. Um, yeah, this is a really good show. I mean, I enjoy all the characters in it, and it's kind of cool to see the storyline um with Dawn, not Dawn, Raven's
Corey.
character, with Raven's character
Oh,
going on,
Rachel.
because
Rachel.
it's also, if you look at the animated DC universe we started where we were watching the movies of a little bit, that's also the kind of the premise of Teen Titans versus or Teen Titans, yeah, Teen Titans versus Justice League is all this. It's also kind of based on the same story about Raven's father trying to come into the world and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and and even Asylum ended up that was a really, I don't want to say fun episode, but very intriguing episode. Like I couldn't look away from it most of the time.
Yeah.
Because it was just there was so much going on. Like Dick Grayson being in his Robin being in his own head, trying to embrace himself. Um, and then the whole thing with Guard finally fighting somebody. Um, to protect Rachel and her mom, and of course Rachel finding her mom. I just felt like it was a really cool episode.
Yeah, speaking of that, we've seen lots of different iterations of a character having healing powers, right? But we've never seen a character be able to be like, I'm going to unheal you now. Just totally
Right.
take
Yeah,
that healing
that
aspect
was
away. That was sweet.
yeah, that was just a sick moment where she's like, I healed you, yes, but now I'm gonna unheal you. And then he just dies. I was like, wow, I've never seen anything like that before. That
Right.
was really interesting. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the rest of this. So far, I got double thumbs up on it. I am really, really interested to see where the next 4 episodes are. And is that what we're gonna do next? Is the next 4? Because we don't have.
I think so, right?
Yeah, I mean, I do want to see the HBO movie, the next one with Hugh Jackman. But I don't think that's for another couple. That's for another 2 weeks, I believe.
Uh, yeah, I think it's did you see that the now HBO has announced that they're not going to be doing this again? They're not going to be doing this next year.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a bad idea. I really like this. I think it's good for me because then I don't have to go to the movie theater and I get to see a lot of movies that I never would have seen.
Well, they'll still be showing their feature movies on HBO Max, but there'll be a 45-day window after. There'll be 45 days after they're in theaters.
And don't they have 11 movies that are exclusive to HBO Max?
I think it's 10, but yeah, it's right around that. Right around.
Because I thought Warner Brothers announced that they're gonna make the 10 or 11 movies that are going to be exclusively for HBO Max.
They
They're not going
did.
to be shown in theaters.
Yeah, they are doing that, but also they have um, they have come to agreement with a couple of different big theater chains that they're not going to do the same day streaming in the theaters anymore.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. Maybe I still what I hit on a 40-day, 5 days later. You know, um, it's I guess I'm okay with that as long as and we might continue doing this whole movie thing next year if that they do that because I'll wait 45 days to watch a movie.
Oh yeah, me too. And it's better than the 70 to 90 days it used to be, right? Because I think it used to be
Oh my
75
God,
to 90 days was the
remember back when there was Blu-rays, it was 90 days after the movie left the theater.
right. That's what I mean.
So it would be 6 months in the theater, and then you'd have to wait another 90 days to rent it on DVD.
Well, Christ, when we were kids, you would have to wait for 6 months for it to come on a videotape, and then the videotapes were $100.
Yeah, and you couldn't rent them because the videotapes were always out. They'd have like 20 copies, and everyone was trying to watch them because they didn't go to the theater. So you'd wait 6 months for it. You'd wait for it to go through its theatrical release, which is usually about 90 to 120 days, depending on how well it does.
Right.
And then you wait another 6 months before it comes out on videotape or DVD or whatever it was. And then you'd go to Blockbuster and try and find it. And they'd have a whole wall of that movie. and it was always sold out. So it'd be another 4 months after that. So a lot of times it was like a year and a half later that I was finally watching these movies.
Looking at this HBO Max, Reminiscence actually comes out this coming Friday, August 20th. Um, but
I
but
cannot, I can't do that because the Paw Patrol movie comes out too. And my kid has been talking about it forever. And I basically made Friday a Paw Patrol day.
oh, I was gonna say I can't do it because it's also this day to see a podcast is supposedly going to debut for Rampage, so I'll be watching that instead.
Well, I'll definitely be watching that too. But yeah, I mean, so we might have to put that one off. I do want to see that movie, but we might have to put that one off till the next week. And then let's finish up Titans then, season 1 of Titans this week.
Absolutely.
And then also one thing that I do want to talk about that I'm really, really, really excited for, and it might be the first TV show that I'm going to actually watch as each episode comes out in the last, Jesus, when did streaming services start? Probably 15, 20 years since I've actually sat down and watched every episode as they came out. And that's the new animated Marvel on Disney Plus. What If?
Oh, really?
I have seen trailers for this. I've heard about it. I was so pumped up by Loki that I am looking forward to this multiverse thing, and I'm not waiting until the season's done before I watch the whole thing.
Didn't it debut yesterday?
Yep, and I'm watching it today.
Okay, because I say I've not seen it yet either. But yeah, and they're only, I think, only half-hour shows, aren't they? So
Yep.
Or
Yep.
yeah.
And from what I understand, it's not a continual storyline, so that's another reason why I'm okay doing it like this. It's got an overarching storyline, but each episode is kind of a standalone show. So that's part of the reason why I'm okay with doing this and watching it right all in one, because I don't have to wait a week or two for the next, for the next chapter of whatever story I'm watching. Oh, and you mentioned this too.
Right. And right when you said overarching storyline, yeah, I mean, there's a reason why this debuted after Loki, because
Right.
Loki talked about the Time Bureau and all that stuff going on, and now this is kind of like showing like the different realities and what they were talking about when they introduced Kang at the end of Loki.
Right. So I mean, we're going to get Kang. We're going to get introduction to the multiverse, which is going to shape the rest of the Marvel MCU for what, phase 5, 6, and 7. But so it's got that overarching storyline, but with each episode kind of being standalone. It's not like I'm going to see zombie Superman in one episode and he's going to be in the next episode. So it's kind of a different feel to it, but it's definitely something I'm going to be watching today. I'm really looking forward to watching every episode when it comes out. And one last thing too. Pretty much
well, wait, before you get there, I also want to see if you see zombie Superman in any Marvel show, that's going to be very interesting, because it'd be a rights violation.
I meant zombie Iron Man. I meant zombie Iron. We were on DC, so but anyway, I don't know if you have anything more on Doom Patrol. I kind of don't. I'm just looking forward to
on Titans. On Titans, no, I don't.
Yeah, Titans. Oh my God, I'm all over the map.
But I'm glad that we're doing it now, because the first 3 episodes of the new season have now dropped too. So I mean, the first episode is Barbara Gordon. The second episode is Red Hood. The third episode is Hawk and Dawn. So
again,
or is it Hank and Dove? It might be Hank and Dove. Something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, they've all three of those have dropped now too. So once we roll into the second season, we can go right into the third, because that's already out. It's already started.
Okay, good. The thing that I did want to bring up is not comic book related or DC related, but it was a comment that you made a few months ago. And because of that comment you made, I actually went through and binged the entire series.
Okay.
And I can honestly say Vampire Diaries is the best vampire story I've ever seen told. I agree with you 100% on that. It was so weird because, the whole first couple of seasons, 4 or 5 seasons, I thought, this is a story about Elena. This is Elena's story. And it wasn't until Elena was put in the coffin at the end of season 5 where you realize that this story was about Damon and Stefan.
Right.
Because the next 3 seasons was all about Damon and Stefan. But then when you started looking back at everything that happened in the first 5 seasons, it was always about Damon and Stefan. It was always Damon and Stefan's story. And
Yeah, that's the
Elena was
truth.
just
That's the real love story between just like Frozen, like the real love story is between the sisters. You
right.
know, in Vampire Diaries, the real love story is between
The brothers.
David and Stefan, and then once you get to the originals, the real love story is between Klaus and Elijah. You know,
Yep.
so
Yep.
so I mean, this is Legacy is just continuing it like kind of that in that exact same vein, but yeah, I mean, really, I mean, if you look at this franchise, um, you know, W the CW does one thing very well. They create pop culture franchises like nobody else. You know.
Yep. Like the Arrowverse and excuse me, and Vampire Diaries, the Buffy world when they were around.
Right.
Yeah, I agree 100%. But this whole, like, I got to that last episode, and it was so great. It was the way I wanted Supernatural to end, where every major player, with the exception of the originals, was in that final episode.
Right.
And I understand why Supernatural couldn't because of COVID. They couldn't have that many people. Canada wouldn't allow a lot of people to come back, so they kind of had to pick and choose. We need Bobby, we need. So I get that, but I love the ending, that final episode when they're walking through heaven and Elena sees her parents again, and John comes out and Jenna's there, and then Stefan has that long-awaited renewal with Damon.
Yeah.
Showing that they both redeemed themselves, they both found peace. Love the fact that once Stefan had died, that he, because he sacrificed himself to save his brother, it was his turn to, it was his time, and he was okay with it. Granted, he had just gotten married, and Caroline, I felt bad about that, but for him to have that conversation with Elena and then walk out the door and see Lexi. It just made that last probably 20 minutes of that show was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And I'm right there with you saying that is probably the best vampire story I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. And I'm so glad that I really felt like we talked about this before, but I really felt like the end of season 4, I was like, I'm not going to watch this anymore. I'm going to jump the shark for me when that moment where Elena fed Catherine the cure, and then
Right.
I was like, yeah, I'll start watching again, just see how I like it. And I really struggled through season 5, but really I'm glad I stuck it through because like you said, everything meant something. Everything tied together. Yep. They tied everything together, and everything meant something. And and you said the other day, like, probably like 2 of your 5 favorite characters stem from that show, right? I mean, you got Elijah and you got Alaric.
And, Yep, and Alaric, especially after he became human again, yep, was probably the most compelling character of the last 3 seasons.
Yep.
He was phenomenal. His love-hate with Damon, and the whole mystical universe, and then getting back into it and then getting out of it, and his love for his kids. And it was just the way that he took stands on things, knowing that he's talking to a guy who's 170 years old and could just rip his heart out without even blinking. I loved the whole Huntress story that they told, where Enzo and Damon and Stefan and Alaric all had to go, and Caroline was there, and then the armory got involved and they had to go kill like thousands of vampires.
Right.
And then the twist where all of a sudden Bonnie becomes the hunter, and Damon sacrifices himself to rescue Bonnie. It was just great, just absolutely great. And Damon sacrificed himself twice to rescue Bonnie during that.
The other thing that go ahead, I'm sorry.
Because he lured her out into the woods and tried to get her to remember, and then he's the one who sacrificed himself by going into the vault destroying
Right.
that last life, and then of course that led to the next season with the sirens.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was going to say, very few shows can pull off a time jump, right?
Right.
And this show really would have been the last one you would have expected to be able to do that, just simply because, for the first 5 seasons, they all took place within roughly a year and a half.
Yep.
It was all like one continuous story, basically all those first 5 seasons, and then season 6 starts 3 years later. You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and then they spend the first half of the season jumping back to modern time, and then all of a sudden they switched it to now 3 years later, or,
Yeah.
or 3 years earlier. And that little storytelling thing made it okay, where I wasn't thrown off by it. The only thing that really kind of frustrated me, but it made sense because she's a vampire and probably compelled her their way there, was when you left Caroline. She was just finishing her or just finishing her sophomore year of college. 3 years later, she's a head producer of a news show in Dallas, a major market.
Yeah, like
It just
like you said, Troy compelled her.
she probably compelled her way there, but it was just jarring at first. It's like, what? If you would just be graduating college right now, not already being the head producer of a major television station.
Um, I am just going to say this: Caroline can compel me anytime she wants to do anything she
to,
wants.
to do anything she wants. Yeah, I get it. I get it. But yeah, I
And
mean, I
and
I I loved it.
I realize that the actress that plays her is happily married with kids and everything, but I think that I just think that she is just absolutely gorgeous. So sorry.
Yeah, I think everybody on there. Bonnie was gorgeous. Lena was gorgeous. Lexi was gorgeous. Valerie was gorgeous. It's like everyone on there was gorgeous. Um, but
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
know. I really enjoyed that last. When they brought back Liz. Even though Caroline couldn't see her because Caroline wasn't dead yet, they brought back Liz um, to be in
All
a
right.
scene, and Joe to be in a scene when they were getting that school for the gifted ready. And it was weird because every time Alaric said he wanted to make a school for the gifted, I'm like, you invented Hogwarts? That's what
Actually, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
that's just what the thought was, because his gifted were witches.
Right.
So I was like, oh, Hogwarts.
The only part I did not like about the ending of the show was they didn't bring Steve McQueen back for the last episode.
Steve McQueen.
Jeremy. They didn't bring Jeremy back.
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
They
yeah, they
did.
did.
They did.
Yeah, he was in the school scene. He was one of the teachers. He was giving a crossbow. Caroline gave him a crossbow, and he was going to go teach some kids how to shoot it.
That's right. Okay, that's right.
Yeah, he came back for the last episode. He was
Okay.
every one of the good guys, with the exception of the originals, came back for the last episode.
Yeah. I don't know if you knew this or not, but his real name is Stephen R. McQueen, who's actually the grandson of Steve
Of Steve McQueen. That's why
McQueen.
it threw me off when you said Steve McQueen. I'm
Yeah.
thinking, wait, what? He was in there? I never once saw him. I guess I didn't realize that Jeremy's real name was Steve McQueen too.
His
But
real name is Steve. He goes by Stephen R. McQueen, but he's actually the grandson of the Steve McQueen.
nice, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a hell of an actor, and I loved his progression from the tiny little drug addicted guy to what he became at the end of his whole story and progression was great. I really wish he had been more involved in the final season.
Right.
Um, Actually, the final 2 seasons. He was really involved in season 6 because he came back after Elena to help Matt hunt down vampires and the heretics and everything. But then season 6 and 7 and 8, or season 7 and 8, he was just nowhere to be found.
Well, I think that's when he was on Chicago Fire. He was a regular Chicago
Oh,
Fire.
okay.
He and I'm trying to think of the name of the character, but Tyler's uncle. Those two actors are two actors from the show that actually ended up as regulars on Chicago.
Right. Yeah, and Tyler showing up in the final episode. Tyler kind of threw me off with his beard. Like I was not expecting that beard.
Right.
And I had to keep doing a double take going, is that really the same actor or is that a different actor? But yeah, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I was a little bit worried once Elena left that I wasn't going to like it anymore. And I didn't think season 6 with the time jumping really had me liking it but as season 6 went on and I started to understand the story they were telling, I absolutely loved it and just couldn't stop watching.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So
We talked about Stefan and Damon. We talked about Elijah and Klaus just briefly, but also like Tyler and Matt, with great romance going on too.
yep.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, and they had a lot of they had a lot of the same problems that Damon and Stefan did throughout the series. And it wasn't it wasn't on the same level clearly, but they went through their issues too. And yeah, they're probably another one that you could put in there. And of course the girls, all three of the girls, Caroline, Bonnie, and Elena.
Yeah.
They had their ups and downs, and there was a lot of love with them as well. But it was weird because, like I said, the first 5 seasons, I thought it was all about Elena and all about her and Stefan and her and Damon, and that it wasn't until she left the show that I really realized what that show was truly about. And it was truly about Damon and Stefan and their love as brothers.
It's amazing how they took these three like trash romance novels,
Right.
and they turned them into such a great not only show but series of shows.
Yeah, it's great. But I just wanted to mention that, especially since we're on our pop culture thing, and it was on one of these shows where you actually said that about how it was the greatest vampire story you'd ever seen, and I'm like, what? And then like the next day I was like, you know what, I'm gonna watch that. And I watched it through and I have to agree. It's the greatest vampire story I've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got more to watch because you still have the originals to
Yeah, I'm taking a break. I'm watching some Dark Side of the Ring, so I'm sure I'll be talking a lot about that and A&E biographies. I just watched the Shawn Michaels one last a couple days ago. Finished the Steve Austin one last night. Now I'm watching the Bret Hart one. And the only one that I can't find is the Booker T one. I had it on my DVR and it's gone. So I'm a little disappointed about that. But I've also been watching the behind the ring stuff. The not behind the ring, Dark Side of the Ring, and they did the Montreal screw job, and I always thought every report I'd ever read, everything was that Triple H was the mastermind of the Montreal screw job.
Yep.
And now in the Dark Side of the Ring episode, which was in season 1, it was the second episode of season 1. Jim Cornette comes out saying he was the guy that brought it up because it was the classic thing from back in the 30s. And I hate Jim Cornette with a passion. There's things he does and says that make me just want to punch him in his throat. But the man does know his wrestling history.
But they get a reaction, though.
Yeah, but he does know his wrestling history. So I believe him when he says he came up with it because he brought back, this happened to this guy in 1936 and told the whole story, and that's the way it played out. So I believe that he's the one that came up with it. I can't believe for a second that Vince Russo went, I'm sick of this. Just have him turn on him. Just have him, double cross. It made more sense with Jim Cornette going through and laying out the story to Vince that would be more believable and Vince would buy in instead of just some jackass screaming in the corner. Just have him beat him with his own move and screw him over. The end of that, if you haven't seen that episode though, it's great. Jim Cornette is just his hatred for Vince Russo comes out.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is I don't think I've ever hated anybody the way that Cornette hates Russo. But he said that he said he is going to live to piss on his grave.
Yeah, I'm gonna live long enough to piss on his grave, and I don't care if I'm an invalid. My wife has orders to drive me to wherever his grave is, so I can piss on it. And then I can die right there and be fine.
Yeah, he's like I'm older than him, but I'm gonna live with his hate as a great motivator.
I was actually I would love to see a Dark Side of the Ring or even just some kind of documentary just on those two and why they hate each other so much. I mean, I know Vince Russo just doesn't get along with anybody. He never has. I don't think there's a person in wrestling that likes him. Everybody comes out and says they hate him.
I think there is one person at least that likes him, and I want to encourage everybody that I forgot to mention this on our wrestling show this morning. I meant to when you mentioned Jeff Jarrett, but Jeff Jarrett has a new podcast out called Jeff Jarrett My World
Yeah, I heard about
with
that.
Conrad Thompson, and it's so good. You know,
Okay.
and I think he's got, but I do think he's a guy that's always gotten along with Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah.
Now
Okay.
whether that
All right.
now whether that changed during their impact their TNA days or not, I don't know. But I do think he's a guy that always got along with Russo at least before that. You know.
Yeah, and that's possible. I know he did in WCW. But I don't know. Yeah, whatever. I mean, we've gone long enough on this, and now it's turned into wrestling, not pop culture anymore. But it's kind of pop culture since it's you know,
Podcast.
it is a TV show and podcast. So, but I don't have anything else. I don't know if you do, but I don't have anything else to discuss.
No, but like Jeff said, if you guys have not watched the Vampire Diaries, you know it's all for free on Netflix as long as Netflix is working, right, Jeff?
Right. Yeah, and eventually it's moving.
Free, but if you have a Netflix subscription, all the episodes are on.
And eventually it's moving to HBO Max.
Right.
So you'll be able to get it for cheaper than what it is on Netflix. But definitely check it out, watch it. It's a great series.
Until next time, thanks so much for watching, guys. This is Shane saying long days, pleasant nights, and Jeff saying
Goodbye.